Before we start this video, a large thank you to John Michael, to Insight Games, Charlie, Devin, and TV Hambicker for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. And, as always, an immense thank you to Halo Burner for their immense and continued support of the channel this month on Patreon. It is sincerely and greatly appreciated, my friend, and I hope you enjoy the video. Hello everybody, and today we are going to continue with our character dialogue. So let's go to the character dialogue script, and right under play dialogue event, let's start populating this function. So first we want to check to see if our dialogue string count and our audio clip count is not the same. If it's not the same, then you know you have an error because there should be a subtitle for every single audio clip that you have, unless you're not including a pop-up for the message on the screen, in which case that's totally fine. But we're going to do it like Souls/Elden Ring, so if they don't equal the exact same count, we're going to send a debug log. Audio clip count does not match subtitle count, missing files. You can even send that as an error or a warning if you want, so it really sticks out. Now right below that, if we do pass the check, what we want to do now is essentially just play an audio clip and also send a UI pop-up, but it's a little more complicated than that. So let's make sure we're keeping track of if we are playing an audio from the character. This will come in handy for cancels and whatnot. And then we're going to say player UI manager.instance.player UI pop-up manager. We can say begin dialog pop-up, and we can pass this an AI character. I'm probably going to change the name of that function from begin to send, because I think we called it that in our pop-up manager. Let's just go over and check it out. So let's go to the player UI pop-up manager, and if I scroll down here, yeah, so I've been calling these send. So to keep the naming conventions the same, I'm going to do that. So I'm going to put this right below send grace restored pop-up. I'm going to call this public void send dialog pop-up. So we're going to make this require a character dialog. We're going to call that the dialog. And we're going to do a couple things here. We're going to make it require an AI character manager as well, actually. Let's call this AI character. Now, right inside here, we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to basically want to enable some form of game object, so the pop-up itself. So let's make a header for that. And we're going to call this header current dialog, because inside here we're also going to keep track of a coroutine, and I'll explain why in a moment. So let's keep track of the dialog for the character dialog and the current dialog that we're passing. So we're going to say current dialog is equal to the dialog that we pass. And then right below that, we're going to make a private coroutine for the dialog coroutine, and we're going to run the coroutine on the scriptable from here. Now, why are we running it from here and not simply on the scriptable? Well, to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you can't run a coroutine from a scriptable object. It has to be ran from a mono behavior. So we're going to say if the dialog coroutine is not equal null, stop coroutine dialog coroutine. Then we can say dialog coroutine equals start coroutine dialog dot play dialog event coroutine. Now, if you're really not liking putting this here, I totally understand it. You can optionally just put it on the AI character sound effect manager and play the dialog coroutine from there. Entirely up to you. Next, we're going to say player UI manager.instance.popup window is open is equal to true, because this is a pop-up. And again, you can't run this coroutine here because this is a scriptable. And then we're just going to say send dialog pop-up, because I changed the name, so I'm going to correct that. And now, after we send that, just make sure you're calling the coroutine here as I said before, and we can continue onward. So right below that, I'm going to make a public void. We can call this set dialog pop-up subtitles. And then we're going to make this require a string variable for some text. And what we're going to do is, I don't think we have the variables yet, but we're actually going to basically enable our game object for our pop-up, and then we're going to set the text mesh pro text field to whatever string we pass. So I know I don't have this yet, but we're just going to say dialog pop-up set active true. We'll come back to this after we make it in a moment. And then we'll say dialog text dot text is equal to whatever we're going to pass. Again, this doesn't exist yet. So we're just going to say dialog. So let's make this require a string variable for the dialog that we want to pass. And now let's quickly just go over to our player UI manager and actually make some UI for this. So I'm going to go onto the pop-up manager, create an empty game object. I'm going to hold Alt and go up to this little transform, rect transform icon up here and make it the size by stretching it and using this bottom right one down here. Now it's forever going to stretch to basically the borders of the pop-up manager. I'm going to add an image component. You can untick raycast target because it is not a raycast target. I'm dropping in this thing I quickly made in Photoshop. It's kind of like a vignette, if that's how you pronounce it. Not entirely sure. I'm going to drag this on here because when we have our subtitles, we're going to hide our UI, just our part of our UI. We're going to hide the HUD with our weapons and our health and stuff. we're going to make this visible, and then we're going to play some text down here. So for that reason too, let's make a UI Text Mesh Pro component here. I'm going to call this dialog text. I'm going to center it both ways, and I'm going to anchor it to the bottom of our screen so that in the event that our resolution changes on different devices, it's going to stay towards the bottom. I'm also going to add a content size fitter. Horizontal is going to be preferred size, and vertical fit is going to be unconstrained. And this makes it so if I were to type something in here or adjust the text field, it's going to expand to basically the minimum size the text field needs. So let me just show you real quick. I'm just going to anchor this. We'll say 150Y on the bottom. That looks pretty good. Now if I'm just going to change the color, make it a little bit darker, it looks kind of too much. And now if I type in here, this is a dialog. You can see that the text field is actually expanding on its own. Cool. So you can set that to the size of font and whatnot that you want. This is a dialog test. Very good. I'm going to hide all of this for now, and I'm going to drag in these variables. I did not make the variables yet. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, let's go back to the pop-up manager and make those variables really fast. So under current dialog, you know what? I've called everything else pop-up in all caps, so I'm just going to call this dialog pop-up. And I guess to keep with my weird naming conventions, I should put dialog in all caps. There we go. Now, I'm going to make the game object for this, and I'm going to make the text field for this, which is Text Mesh Pro. So the game object is going to be called dialog pop-up game object, and the Text Mesh Pro field I will call dialog text. There we go. Very good. Dialog pop-up text, I suppose, actually. Now, down here, we can call this game object. I did not name it anything remotely similar. Dialog pop-up game object set active true, and then we can say dialog pop-up text.text is equal to, why is this giving me grief? Because I did not make this a string variable. Whoops, I said that out loud a bunch of times and didn't do that. String dialog text, there we go. All right, save that. Looks good so far. Now let's go over to the project again. Let's drag in these variables and just disable the dialog pop-up by default, because that's not going to be enabled unless you prompt it. Let's save that and go back into Visual Studio, and I'm going to hop over to character dialog. Now, for playing dialog coroutine, what do we do here? Well, we essentially want to make sure that we process each part of the dialog in the list of audio clips. So we also want to play our greeting if that's available. So we're going to do a check here and say if the greeting dialog count does not equal 0 and the greeting has not played, we're going to say greeting has played equals true, and then we're going to pick a random greeting from the selection ones that you have there. So we could say random greeting dialog index is an int is equal to random.range 0 greeting dialog audio.count. It's worth noting here too, you might want to check to make sure the greeting dialog audio and strings list is the same amount, otherwise you will get an error. If it tries to draw one that isn't, you'll get an out of index error. So playerui.instance.playerui pop-up manager set dialog pop-up subtitles, and we're going to pass the greeting dialog string, we're going to pass our random index. So this is going to set the dialog subtitles to whatever this random greeting is. And then we're going to make the AI character play a sound effect by saying AI character sound effect manager, and then we're going to play a sound effect, and we're going to pass the greeting audio clips, and again we're going to pass the random one that we selected via this index. So now it's basically going to sing you that pop-up, and it's going to make the AI character at the same time play this audio clip. Then we're going to yield return new wait for seconds, and we're going to pass the time of the audio clip. And if you want to make a buffer variable, you can, but I'm just going to say +1 for 1 extra second. You can change this though by making again a variable on the actual dialog event scriptable itself, and you can pass that buffer. I find 1 second is generally pretty good. Again, magic numbers are not good, so if you want to make a variable, you can, but I find in this case it's just an extra second. Entirely up to you though. So we're going to make a comment here: play a random greeting dialog, then wait the length of that audio clip plus a second in the comment. And again, that is just a buffer time so that the audio doesn't happen very fast. It sounds jarring when it does. So then we're going to say after the greeting is played, while the dialog index is less than the dialog string.count, we are simply going to basically play all of these and do the same thing we're doing up here. We're going to wait every time we get to the end of one, but we're going to send the UI proper subtitles, and we're going to make the AI character play the proper dialogue. So let's do that by saying player UI manager instance, player UI pop-up manager, set dialog pop-up subtitles. We pass the string using the dialog index, and then we play the AI character audio by using the dialog audio and again passing the dialog index. So after all that's over, we can do a yield return wait for seconds, and again we wait the time that we waited before, which is the length of the current audio clip, and then we're going to say +1 as a little buffer, So we can say dialogue index, dialogue audio. We pass the dialogue index, dot length +1. And then we're going to say dialogue index ++, which just basically increments it and adds one on, so we move on to the next one. So essentially, this is just going to go in a loop and play through all these dialogue options here in your core dialogue until it is done. And every time it finishes playing one, it's going to add something to the index. So it goes on to the next. Whoops, there we go. Had to fix that. I was saying dialogue index instead of audio. So when this is done, we're going to say on dialogue ended, because if you make it to the end and this while loop is not interrupted, that assumes that you've ended the dialogue without interruption. Then we can say player UI manager.instance.popup UI manager end dialogue. Now this doesn't exist yet. So under on dialogue ended, this is where we're going to call on our AI character on dialogue ended. So why am I doing 2? Well, you might want something specific to happen on an AI character sometimes, because I have use cases for this. And a lot of times on the on dialogue ended on the scriptable, you just need to set the stage for the next dialogue. This is going to happen most of the time if you want to progress any kind of quest line. So again, if you want to do something on your character, because not all characters will have this happen, you can do it here. But a lot of times your dialogue will change the index to get a new set of dialogue, so you're almost always going to do that. So I'm going to make a comment, do stuff with character dialogue scriptable if desired, and do stuff with AI character if desired. So on the scriptable, for example, every time, or at least a lot of the time, I'm going to do it every time in my project, you want to reset the greeting as played, because if you want to repeat the same dialogue, you want to repeat the greeting again, and you could say dialogue index is equal to 0. Okay, now check my notes real quick. I'm just going to say if set stage. We actually don't have a function for this yet, so I'm going to comment this out, but this is where you want to set the stage of this dialogue for this specific character, but we'll get to that, don't worry. So for now, I'll leave that commented out and put some pseudocode, set the stage. All right, now let's make this end dialogue pop-up thing on the player UI pop-up manager. So I'm going to copy that so I can go over here and just paste it. We're going to make a public void end dialogue pop-up. Now, what do we want to do here? Well, when we start the dialogue, it would be a good idea to hide some of our HUD, and ending it, it would be a good idea to bring it back. Also, we want to disable the dialogue pop-up object, obviously, but here we have toggle HUD. You can see it's going through all of our HUD, including our pop-ups. We don't want that. We just want the main HUD, which is like our weapons and our health. So I'll make another function, toggle HUD without pop-ups. And if you want to make it something a bit different, that's cool too, but basically there is a canvas group list we have, and all we need is to get the first one, or maybe it's an array, but we just need the entry 0 because if I remember correctly, that is just our weapons and our health bar. And I'll set the alpha to 1 and then down here 0 if we're not toggling it, just as is before. So it's the exact same code, but we're only affecting one canvas group instead of all of them. Now I'm going to call this probably when we start the dialogue and when we end it or if it's canceled. So back over here on end dialogue pop-up, we could say player UI manager.instance.HUD manager toggle UID or toggle HUD without pop-ups, and the status is going to be true because we want to bring it back on our screen. And when we send a dialog pop-up, let's change it to false, unless you want your weapons and your health bars present when dialog happens, in which case don't bother to do this. So let's save that, and then we're going to go back to the AI character sound effect manager, and now let's populate these functions. So we have play current dialog event, play farewell dialog event, and cancel. So under play current dialog event, let's make a public character dialog, current dialog. Let's get rid of our pseudocode. And we're going to say if the current dialog is equal to null, we want to simply return because there's nothing we can play. Now, otherwise, we're going to say if dialog is not playing, we want to begin this dialog event by saying current dialog, play dialog event, and passing this character. What if it's already playing? Well, it means you likely want to skip ahead to whatever comes next. So we can make something for that as well. But we're also going to make it require the AI character variable, which we don't have in the script. So let's override our awake, make an AI character manager variable, and say AI character is equal to get component AI character manager. Now, otherwise, if the dialog is in fact already playing, you likely just want to skip ahead. So what we can do is say player UI manager.instance send next dialog pop-up in the index. Now we don't have this yet, but let's pass our current dialog and our AI character, and we're going to make this function right now. It's going to function pretty much identically as the send dialog pop-up, but we're going to basically just skip ahead to whatever's next in the index if anything is applicable. So let's make it require a character dialog and an AI character manager. And again, we can just call this the same thing we did up there, the character dialogue can be called dialogue, and the AI character manager can be called AI character. So we're going to say if, whoops, just going to copy this actually to save some time. You can set the current dialogue again if you want, just in case, but it should be the same if you're skipping ahead. So we're going to say current dialogue equals dialogue. If dialogue coroutine is not equal, I'll stop the coroutine so we don't accidentally run something multiple times. And then we could say if AI character sound effect manager audio source. Oh, that's not a public variable. Okay, let's jump to our character sound effect manager and make this public so we can access it here. Why? Well, we want to stop whatever clip is happening first before we proceed to the next one. Otherwise, you get a really weird overlap. So we're going to say if the dialogue is playing on the audio sound effect manager, we're going to say AI character sound effect manager audio source stop. Okay, so after we stopped, what do we do now? We say current dialogue index plus. So we're basically making it go to the next index. And then what are we going to do? We're just going to simply basically play it by saying current dialogue, or rather the dialogue that we pass. It doesn't matter which one you reference. We're going to use this by we're going to set the dialogue coroutine, and we're going to say equals start coroutine dialogue.play dialogue coroutine, and we're going to say AI character. So now it's just going to basically do the coroutine over again, but start from that newest dialogue index that you've passed. You've just essentially just bumped it up one and stopped what you're playing currently and restarted it by playing it with a new index. Okay, let's call that from the pop-up manager. That looks good. Now, farewell dialogue is going to be pretty much the exact same thing as play current dialogue, but instead of checking for a current dialogue, you're going to check for a farewell dialogue. If it's null, simply return. And then we're going to say if a dialogue is not playing, first we need to make this variable. So public character dialogue, farewell dialogue, getting rid of all of our pseudocode here. Okay, there we go. And again, pretty much the same thing. Check for farewell, and you want to check to make sure there's no dialogue playing. So if no dialogue is playing, then you want to just pass the farewell dialogue and play that. So I'm just going to copy and paste this, and I'm just going to change current dialogue to farewell dialogue. And then otherwise, we're going to get the next index in case the farewell is multiple lines. Okay, cancel current dialogue event. What do we do here? So when we cancel the current dialogue event, we're going to say if dialogue is playing is equal to false, and if there's an audio clip playing, it would be a good idea to stop that as well. We can also say player manager.instance.player UI pop-up manager cancel dialogue pop-up and pass the AI character so we can do it from there. So this doesn't exist. Let's go ahead and make it. So over here in our player UI pop-up manager, we want a cancel. So right below end dialogue pop-up, and again, cancel is if you walk out of the interaction radius and the conversation is abruptly ended. So we're going to say cancel dialogue pop-up. And what are we doing here? The same thing mostly as end, except for a couple extra steps. So you can paste this right here. And then you can say right under that, if the current dialogue does not equal null, we're going to stop the coroutine. I keep saying current dialogue. I mean to say the dialogue coroutine, getting my naming conventions mixed up because of Nephilim. So if the dialogue coroutine does not equal null, stop dialogue coroutine. And then we're going to say if, and we need to pass the AI character manager. And again, we're going to check for the audio source playing a clip here. So let's make that require AI character, pass the AI character. And then we're going to say if AI character sound effect manager audio source is playing, we can simply stop it. AI character sound effect manager audio source stop. You could check for if a dialogue is playing there as well in proper order, just in case it happens to play some random audio clip at the same time that you don't want to stop. Then we can say dialogue pop-up game object set active is equal to false, and then we can say current dialogue on dialogue canceled and pass our AI character. Okay, we're almost good. So if we go back now to the AI character, all we have is on current dialogue ended, and all we got to do now when it's over is get a new dialogue based on the current stage ID. And I think that is a great place to stop because we're already running pretty deep on the time. So in the next episode, we're going to conclude this. And in that episode, we're going to create a system to basically get dialogues based on the stage ID. And after you complete a dialogue, if you set the stage ID to an ID, you will get a new dialogue. We'll also go over saving and loading this, of course, when you go into the game, so wherever you're at with that current character, it will be saved when you leave and come back. Now then, I hope you all have a very lovely weekend. Thank you so much to those who take the time to hit the like button and leave a comment. It actually does help out the series so much. And thank you immensely to my patrons. It is because of all of you that this series can continue and continues to exist at all. You truly have my sincerest gratitude. I'll see you guys next week.